Hey yo, I am the star in any room that I stand in. I am the standout, you just my stand-in. These bitches copy my homework, that's what they hand in. That's why I'm private like the airports I land in. Life is a beach house, don't let the sand in. I ball in any arena, go let the fans in.
What's up, y'all? I hope all is well. So today I want to talk about people dragging Tashena Arnold for her recent um colorism or skin tone dynamic take. She said something about so-called reverse colorism, and people did not like her reaction. And I just wanted to give some commentary on just this whole conversation that's been going on surrounding like Martin, and the comments he used to make on the TV show and Ari Lennox and everything. And I was like going back and forth if I was gonna do commentary on it or maybe I was gonna do a live. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I think I'm still gonna do a live about something else in relation to this topic, but I had to just do a video on this because there was just a lot of things I had to unpack. So first things first, I love Tashena Arnold. I still watch her shows religiously. She has a show with Cedric the Entertainer. It's called like The Neighborhood or something like that. Me and my whole family watch that. We still love Martin. Martin is one of my favorite shows. I love everybody. Everybody hates Chris. Me and my family also used to watch that religiously when it aired. Like Tashena Arnold is an American princess. Okay, she's American acting royalty, not just Black America, but just America in general. Okay, like so we not finna play with Auntie Tashena Arnold. I like period. Like we just gonna let the legends be who they are. And same thing with Tisha Campbell. Love Tisha Campbell. Like I said, love Martin. Everything that she's been in. I love like her speaking engagements. I love her personality and everything. You know, School Days, shoot, even though that movie, shoot, there's so much I get into about that movie, but she's just been in so many House Party, oh my god, how could I forget? House Party is also one of my favorites. I love that soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like both of them are just American but Black American gems. Okay, period. So I hate that I even have to talk about this in relation to them because it's really sad that they want to take all of our American legends and somehow try to yoke them in the colorism dynamic, especially when they're homegirls and longtime friends and even acting partners. Like, I feel like that's so corny. Like, everybody knows Tisha Campbell and Tashena Arnold have been homegirls forever. They started acting together. They came up together. They both have had equal shine and stardom on their own. A lot of kids today don't even know that they was friends and started off together probably. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's so annoying that this even came up, even though I do think it's a good conversation to have about the problematic things that Martin would say, and I'm gonna get into that in a second. But yeah, I just find that to be so annoying, and I hate when they do this tit for tat thing with Black homegirls just because they're different skin tones. That's mad corny. Stop trying to project that onto people in a situation. That shit is weird. Just because you got color issues or whatever you got going on psychologically with you, stop trying to project that onto other people because that's not everybody's issues. Same thing with me. I have homegirls that's all skin tones, dark skin, brown skin, every ethnicity from every continent. Like, stop it. Cut it out. Like, you know, I just feel like that's mad corny. It don't even gotta be that. And people really be projecting their own issues. They do the same thing with Kelly and Beyonce. They did the same thing in a lot of different situations, just with friends in general, like, you know, or even just people who work together. Like I said, I remember even a few people trying to make that correlation between Brandy and Monica. I don't think it's accurate, but some people tried to do that light skin dark skin thing with them back in the day. They used to try to do that with all the R&B girls, you know, like in the early 2000s and stuff, and I just find it really corny. Like, even the acting girls, like, I'm blanking for celebrities at this moment, but you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that's super corny. Like, people really do be instigating that type of stuff between Black girl celebrities, and I feel like that's corny and played out. If there's actually a situation, that's one thing, but don't try to project that on a situation that don't gotta be just because two women are having a disagreement, or not even that. They could literally be having no problems and people will still try to project different issues onto them. Like, they can't just be happy that they friends. It's just weird. And I don't think that was Ari Lennox's intention with bringing this up. And I'm going to get to her soon because that's something I want to get into too. But I don't think that was her intention at all. But some people are taking it there. And I have heard and seen on the internet sometimes people have tried to make that comparison between Tashena Arnold and Tisha Campbell, which I don't feel like is a fair comparison or necessary. And like I said, between other girlfriends as well. So it's just cheesy. Like, don't I feel like don't project that where it's not necessary. But yeah, so let's get into first I think I'm going to get into my take on Martin, and then I'm gonna ease into Ari Lennox from there, and then the other stuff. So, like I said, I grew up watching Martin. It's one of my favorite shows. It's a classic. It's hilarious. It's so many classic episodes. Martin is hilarious, and he's just ignorant as hell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I miss that type of just raw humor and just those types of sitcoms that were just like funny and just regular everyday life type of shows. Like, I feel like just that type of like authenticity, even though of course it's TV, but I don't know, that type of like spirit in television is just gone. I don't know, it's something about it. Like, that's why people don't watch TV, and then even the shows that they try to give that vibe, it just gives mad fake. So shout out to Tashena Arnold and Cedric the Entertainer for that show that they have, because I actually like how that show is written and it's not corny. And a lot of the shows that are like studio shows today are super corny, and they don't have that feel that the shows had in like the 80s and 90s. But anyway, but yeah, Martin is a clown, but yeah, he's ignorant. Like, he's ignorant as hell. Like, let's be real here. And like, yeah, he did say problematic stuff about everybody, but he did joke on Pam the most. And I did always feel like that was extra, and I didn't like that. So I did agree with Ari. I'm keeping saying Ari Fletcher. No, Ari Lennox. I hate Instagram, but yeah, so. I see where she was coming from with that, because I always felt like that too. And it's like, Martin, you not a catch to be talking like that anyway. You think because you got your little radio situation that you hot shit, you could be coming at Pam when Pam is fine as hell. She's fly. She got super cute outfits. She got nice long thick hair, face card hitting, body tea. Like, you saw that episode when her and Gina went to work out. Like, what? They both bad as hell. Like, what? Martin was just insecure because he knew that they was both baddies and had the flyest clothes. Gina had a way better job than him. She was way smarter than him, but his family would be talking crap about her. Like, it was just like, it was so many things about Martin. And let's be real, he had control of the show. So this was all coming from Martin Lawrence's real mind. You know, they was just acting. But yeah, so, and she got her lashes in as well. She got some good jokes in on Martin, and she would be talking about him as well. And, you know, she wouldn't be holding back. So although he did say a lot of ignorant stuff, and I feel like he definitely antagonized her the most, and I didn't like that. She definitely clapped back, and I like that they never showed her as like, you know, she always had a man, even though she, you know, she didn't have a man like Gina and things, but which is noticed as well. And that also plays into what people be talking about online today, where they always try to play that dynamic with versus light-skinned women and darker-skinned women. They try to say, oh, well, they get in a relationship. Who is she in a relationship with though? Martin, who's making the jokes? Like, you know what I mean? Wasn't Gina like a lawyer? Like, come on now. A radio person can be replaced at any time. Like, and what was he like, the commercial dude? Like, he was the guy you listen to between like 7 o'clock and 8, you know, like the off hours. Like, you come on at a Sunday, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he was prime time, I don't remember, but you know what I mean. It's just, yeah, the regular dynamic. But that is notable. And yeah, I did always feel like that was weird that he always picked on Pam the most, and he would be saying some OD stuff. But it was like, that was also like that back and forth culture. Like, let's be real, that is very much a part of Black culture. Like, that's something that's all over the world. That's in the Caribbean, that's in Latin America, that's in Africa, that's everywhere that Black people are playing the dozens, coming at each other, especially amongst Black men, I noticed. So I just think that's a real conversation that we can have. Like, in our culture, we can banter and sometimes like say wild stuff. And, you know, sometimes people do say that to their kids. Sometimes people in their families grow up saying that type of stuff. But Martin definitely directed most of his energy at Pam. And I also think that subconsciously that just reflected who Martin really was inside, an insecure man with short man syndrome. You know what I mean? Who knew his girl was too qualified for him, you know? So it's interesting, but I do feel like Ari Lennox made a good point in bringing that up, and that is a valid thing to point out. And I always had noticed that as well. And I also think, like, I'm gonna point out this a little bit more later when I get more into Tashena Arnold's recent interview, but I also definitely do feel like Gen X, who that show was produced by and marketed to, they definitely have a different perspective on the comments that would be made versus now. Like, some of the stuff that Martin used to be saying at that time, I'd be listening and it reminds me of being a little kid. And it's funny because I know, oh my God, people, not only do people not say these things anymore, like BDBs and stuff, but they would see it as offensive today, like on social media and things. So the culture has changed. So that's what people wanted to push back against, and that's what ended up happening. And I had natural hair at that time. I've talked about how it was. So, like I know firsthand. So he would be coming at Pam's hair trying to talk about the texture and everything. And same thing with Gina. So that's true that he would come at both of them. He just came at Pam more. So like I said, Pam always kept the job. She always had fly clothes. She always had a man too, even though she wasn't like the main girl or whatever, which I feel like that's what a lot of people would point out. But, anyway. But yeah, so I just feel like it is interesting. And I do feel like Gen X sees that stuff differently than millennials and Gen Z, just because of the information and what is popular to talk about nowadays. So that's important to talk about as well. And it's also a reflection of like the next generation always deciding to do better. Like a lot of people didn't like the whole bantering and coming at black features and black hair and stuff. So millennials and Gen Z made a decision to change that, and now people are more educated. So I think we can just look back at Martin and see it as something of its time and just enjoy it for what it is. And it's like, yeah, we can talk about what the impact of that was or whatever and just move on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like Ari Lennox was bringing that up trying to be super divisive or trying to break up their friendship or trying to complain. I just feel like she just mentioned it, and it just is what it is. And I noticed that as well. Even long before she pointed that out, he had said some things to Pam. I was like, that's weird, he shouldn't have said that. Or he used to come at her a lot, you know what I mean? And I would even say that to my family, like, why he always coming at Pam? Like, but yeah, he got short man syndrome and he's insecure, and he would be coming at Gina too, saying that she got big heads. So now I'm wondering, is that where the whole light-skinned girls having big foreheads and big head thing came from? Because even growing up on Facebook, boys used to clown me about my forehead, bro. In the hallway, boys used to come, because I used to do in high school, we used to be having the buns, and then you do your little baby hairs and put your door knocker earrings, feel me, that got your name on it or whatever. That's how we do it in New York. So they would be coming up slapping my forehead, which is so disrespectful. But I remember they would always be saying that about Gina that Gina got a bobblehead and everything. So I'm like, is that where the whole light skinned girls got big heads thing? I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, they always picking on women. Black men are always doing that, even in real life. They always trying to play the dozens, always trying to crack jokes and everything. But if you actually speak facts about them and their real life behavior, now they crying foul and you allegedly bashing them. But they could crack jokes on everybody else. Children, elderly, crippled people. Like, they could talk about everybody, but when you actually talk about them, and when I start cracking jokey jokes, now it's a problem. So yeah, I feel like Ari Lennox was definitely onto something, and she definitely triggered Gen X by bringing that up, because they was big mad. And whenever you talk about the problematic things that used to be said in the culture, they get hyper defensive and try to rewrite history. And I love Gen X, don't get me wrong. They had the best music, the best cinema, the best TV shows. Like, all of our culture today basically comes from Gen X. Like, Gen X was late. I love Gen X. Like, I was raised by Gen X. So don't get me wrong. That's not me bashing. But let's be real. Like, millennials and Gen Z have their problems because of the stuff that they experienced as kids. Let's be real. That didn't come from nowhere in a nutshell. So Martin's banter is just a time capsule of the time. So them getting triggered by her bringing that up just reveals something, you know what I mean? And I've even had these conversations in my family as well. Like, don't try to rewrite history and make it seem like you don't understand why everybody felt some type of way about their hair when everybody was getting a perm in the late 90s early 2000s, and then y'all sitting up here talking about beady beads. Like, please don't.
I would also appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are not already and the content resonates with you. Welcome. As well as making sure you hit the bell for notifications so you'll be informed every time I upload a new video or go live. I'd also encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can access old and exclusive content, as well as having early access to new uploads. That will be linked in the description box below.
Oh, but before I move on to that, yeah, I had made a video about Little Kim and Faith Evans. And this also goes back to people trying to rewrite history because, again, this is a situation where you do have millennials and Gen Z on social media trying to rewrite history, making it seem like, oh, Little Kim was this all suffering colorism victim and men were just not checking for her. She was always just a lackey to Faith Evans. Meanwhile, there was probably 90,000 other light skinned and non black bitches in the picture. Who knows what the hell Biggie was doing? Probably a couple men as well, but we gonna leave that alone. But so yeah, like I don't feel there's never been a time when Little Kim was not seen as desirable. And same thing with Pam. I heard men always talking about Pam being fine, Pam having the best outfits, Pam being really cute. Like men always thought Pam was attractive. Pam always kept the man on the show. And I'm not saying that male validation or having a man makes you good or is an A for colorism. I'm not saying that at all, but that's often what the narrative surrounds. So I just feel like it's not cool to try to make it seem that way. Like Little Kim had her insecurities because of stuff she experienced. To go to that extreme with her looks, it's a little bit more than just Biggie, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but there was somebody under the video and they were like, oh, you don't understand the culture of the 90s. You don't understand what's going on. And because I was making a point about how a lot of the men in hip hop were extremely abusive to the women they were with. I was simply talking about abuse and the stuff black women were going through in terms of like dealing with abusive crazy black males and then having children with them and everything. And this person telling me I don't understand the culture when I wasn't even talking about culture and music. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a situation where I'm like, yeah, like what does that have to do with the person China? They were just trying to gaslight and make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh, you don't know it at all. It's like you don't know what I experienced as a child or what I seen. So how are you telling me I don't understand the culture? You don't know what position I'm speaking from, you know? So yeah, it's not a person. It's like they look at it as a personal attack when you talk about the problematic things that was happening in the 90s and 2000s. It's like, no, it's not a personal attack. I'm just speaking on like what happened and how we can do better in the future. But I feel like Ari Lennox was really attacked for saying that. And it's like, no, what she was saying is true, even though, yeah, we love Martin and that's everybody's like go-to show for the most part, but that's a fair point to make. So yeah, I was just keying to myself because I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised because I got the same reaction when I made a video and when I've said things in real life I've gotten a similar reaction. But this is the thing. Now I'm gonna talk about Ari Lennox. So my thing with Ari Lennox though, Ari Lennox, I like Ari Lennox's music. I've been keeping up with her for a while. I've definitely been aware of her for a minute. My only thing with Ari Lennox is that Ari Lennox is a rabid black male worshiper. And I find it interesting that now, and people are allowed to evolve and change and realize stuff. And I want to be clear about that. People are allowed to have different perspectives or regret things that they said. So I want to make that clear. But I find it interesting that wasn't it like 4 years ago she was hopping in on the mob dragging what is Oprah's friend's name? I forgot. Gayle King. Wasn't Snoop Dogg dragging Gayle King and he called her basically he called her a female dog and called her funky. Mind you, this is a legend, an elderly black woman in the community. Ari Lennox's goofy bird self going to hop in on the conversation and double down on dragging her. And this was like 4 years ago or so. Like this was not like mad long ago. Like okay, maybe 4 years is a stretch, but you get what I mean. Like mind you, all of this was behind Kobe Bryant, whose own non-black wife didn't even defend him. Like, which is like I'm not gonna get into that because you know how triggered black people get when we talk about Kobe Bryant. But I'm just saying, like I just find that very interesting. So now she's like talking like she's offended by Martin, which I agree with and I respect her opinion, but it's like that's very interesting that now you offended by Martin but you wasn't offended by what Snoop Dogg said. Because I was triggered because that was a very nasty way to come at a grown person, a person that's older than you. Like that was so disrespectful and it was so weird how mad he got. It's like what he called her to was so childish. Like they was so mad. Like it's not funny, but like I was so shocked by how mad they were. Like they was getting up there in they bonnets and they wraps from the Chinese beauty supply, and they was so mad. Like they was dragging Gayle King by her custom wig. for like a week. They was so mad. And Ari Lennox was up there right behind the black males, dragging a black woman. So it's like you had the wherewithal to see what Martin was saying was untasteful. But you was right there behind Snoop Dogg, and you didn't even apologize or really see the error in your ways until you was dragged profusely. Like, so it's just like I noticed this pattern a lot with a lot of black men worshipers. I just had to be honest with you. So it's a situation of where a clock is right, a wrong clock is right once a day or twice a day, whatever the hell the saying is. You know what I mean? So like I can agree with her take, and that's why I began with that. But I can also recognize it's interesting that you taking this perspective now after you did all that damage. And it's like, yeah, people are allowed to evolve and change and see the error of their ways. I'm not holding that against her. I just found that really funny. It's like, I didn't forget about that situation, sis. Like, and what Snoop Dogg said was very similar to the exact same things that Martin would say about Pam. In fact, one of the worst things that I feel like he would say about Pam was comparing her to a dog all the time. And that's literally what Snoop Dogg said about Gayle King, and a lot of black men who are coons have said this about black women as well. So for her to hop up her bird ass up there and double down on that, I was just like, really? Like, you know, and like I said, I've been a fan of her and I've kept up with her for a while. So when she did that, I was really disappointed. I ain't gonna lie, that low key kind of, it didn't turn me off for good, because I'm never gonna dismiss a black woman about anything. I could hold them accountable, but I'm never gonna write them off completely. So I still supported her and kept up with her and everything. But yeah, it definitely made me like have to shake my head really hard. And I think she did apologize or whatever, but yeah, I just feel like that's very interesting. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like the reason why they be having an issue with the comments that men like Martin were making towards Pam is because these types of black women really want to be accepted and validated by black males. And it's nothing wrong with wanting to be validated by your culture and your people group. I want to be clear about that. That's never what I'm saying. But we have to be, we have to keep the same energy here. We have to be intellectually consistent. And let's be real here. It is very hard for black male worshipers to change their pattern of thinking. So yeah, I'm sure she's realized and seen more things and come to more conclusions in the last couple years, because I believe she's around my age. You know, she's, I think, early 30s, maybe late 20s, I don't know. But you know, you realize a lot of things, see things differently. But it's like, girl, like, let's be real, it's very hard for them to change their pattern of thinking. So we can assume she probably has realized stuff, but do you really think she's living by that? You know what I mean? Like, to the extent, and the stuff she be saying, she do still give me black man worshiper vibes. So it's just like, I don't know, I'm a little concerned there. Like, there seems to be a disconnect with a lot of black women from like that type of positioning and how that's handled in like the comments. It's like, let's think about this. Martin was made what, in the mid 90s? So that was like 30 years ago. Then you have, what, 6 years ago, Snoop Dogg using the same rhetoric against a black woman that's older than him. Like, come on now. Like, this is why this stuff has continued. So I thought that was important to point out as well, you know, not to hold that over her head, but just to make the point that this is actually a pattern with a lot of these, you know, black male worshipers or disgruntled black male worshipers. They tend to take on the colorism band, like the mantle of colorism. They tend to take that on, I noticed, because yeah, they don't like the comments that black men are making, and they want to feel like, you know, they want black men to say positive things. And if you notice, black men will say a lot of publicly positive things about non-black people, specifically non-black women, but they very, very, very rarely ever say anything positive about any group of black women at any time. Like, I don't see where all the declarations of, you know, respectful praise for light-skinned women is. When they're talking about light-skinned black women, they're usually talking about the context of a strip club, her behind, and something that involves sex that doesn't really mean much. So it's like, where are all these proclamations of love? Like, so I feel like a lot of black women want that validation. They want them to say kind things. So when they're always seeing them antagonizing black women, it makes them feel some type of way. So it's a reasonable way to feel. I'm not saying that, but I think that that's what's going on here. So I kind of took it as like I said, I grew up with them making comments, shoot, about my physical face, hair, appearance, my having natural hair, whatever it might be. I always just kind of like took it as like whatever. Like at a certain age, I realized I'm like, yeah, that's a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And sometimes I would play the dozens back to them. I would hit them right back with the texturism. Now, I'm not saying you should handle your problems like that or you should argue with people like that, because I don't do that anymore. But when I was at school, I'll go there with you. Like, I'll match your crazy. Now, I do believe in matching people's crazy. You don't have to go there with the ignorance and the personal insults and, you know, resort to the bullying, but you can insult people in other ways and match they crazy in other ways. So that's how I fight now. But yeah, I'll go there with black men. I'll match their energy. So how they used to try to come at me, I kind of let it, like, I was like, whatever. Like, and you know, I also always dated like other boys as well. So I never felt like isolated either. And I always had friends of other races, and even my girlfriends that were black and Spanish and stuff, they always, you know, in my family as well, they always made me feel great, and always like, I never really internalized what they felt. I'm not saying that just because other black girls don't like it, it means that they internalize it. I'm just saying, like, it was easy for me to ignore and tune out what they said, because that was only a small portion of what I was hearing compared to the overwhelming positive enforcement I was getting. And I feel like that's how I feel about the Pam character. Yeah, Martin was a Debbie Downer and he was just an insecure weirdo, but the rest of the world didn't view Pam like that. And it's the same thing like Little Kim. Like, yeah, she probably had this, you know, hating black male in her ear talking about her and trying to triangulate her against other women, but the rest of the world didn't view her like that. The rest of the world viewed her as very beautiful, as very inspirational, very confident, very sexy. Same thing with Pam, you know, having money, you know, a boss babe. Like, that's how people view Pam, that's how people view Little Kim. So I feel like that duality is powerful as well, because you can relate to both experiences, and you can see both perspectives. You've went through that character development and character building, but you also have that confidence from yourself and the people around you as well. So that's important.
Yeah.
You know, the way we used to crap on Tichina about being light skinned, oh my God. It was bad. So we have jokes, but my relationship with that show was never ever, those jokes were never written from malice. It was written from who's got the best joke.
Who's got the best shit, right?
Yeah. Like, even with Tisha, what people don't realize, that reverse colorism happens as well.
Oh yeah, dude.
And I remember Tisha, she would cry sometimes. It would be so bad because we had a live studio audience, and the girls, the black girls would come in, and they were there for Martin, you know, and that was Martin, like this Def Comedy Jam and stuff. So it was that kind of crowd that would come to our shows, and they would laugh so hard, they would bang on the floor like you would hear. It was just crazy from the laughter of the audience. And every time, the whole first season, every time Tisha would walk out, all you hear was, they would not laugh at her jokes. Wow. They treated her horribly.
That's crazy.
And I was treated fine because, you know, you would think they would be me because I'm going back and forth with him. But no, they did not want Martin having a girlfriend. Wow. She just so happened to.
So now I'm going to go into people dragging Tashena Arnold about her so-called reverse colorism take. So I think I'm going to do a whole review of another video that's relating to this. So I don't think I'm going to give that many details about this, but I want to bring up the part about, I think Tashena Arnold said that people were making Gina cry. Not Gina, Tisha Campbell, sorry. You get what I mean. They were making her cry on the set because she didn't feel accepted or something along the lines. Honestly, I was started to make this video quick. I didn't do that much research first. I watched Lovely T's live stream like yesterday at work, but I kind of forgot the details. But yeah, so she said something about she was crying. She said, you know, the color issue goes both ways and everything. So people were mad because people get very triggered when people talk about so-called reverse colorism. I call it so-called reverse colorism because, like I said, I prescribe, like I've said in other videos, I prescribe to Alice Walker's original definition of colorism, which is, it's just skin tone discrimination either way. She didn't specify, so I'm not going to specify, so I don't think it's a reason to call it reverse. I think that's like an oxymoron. It's no reason to call it reverse. You know, if we're going to call it colorism, just call it colorism. It just is what it is. But I also am of the mindset that the hostility or discrimination that light skin and mixed people face, I do think it comes from a different place than colorism, because colorism in the Americas, in my opinion, comes from the anti-African and anti-indigenous sentiments that has been enforced through colonization and slavery, as where the issue with light-skinned black people or mixed people of African descent tends to come from miscegenation, or, you know, the history surrounding people's perspective of how colorism has been used, again, during colonization. So it's different. In other parts of the world, colorism comes from different places, so that distinction is important to make. So I like Dr. Umar's perspective on this, which is kind of where I'm going to go with the other piece of content I'm taking about that. So I'm not going to get too much into that. But I also do want to make the comparison that you do see that in those two examples, the person that's antagonizing Pam or Tashena Arnold on the show is a black man. The people that Tisha Campbell was experiencing the antagonization from was black women. So that's a huge key difference here that a lot of people don't want to point out either. And again, I'm not going to get too deep into that, but that is something that a lot of people don't want to point out. So again, that shows that the discrimination or the hostility is coming from two different places. And I actually do think it is. Black males like to isolate and try to antagonize darker skinned black women for a different reason than why black women may antagonize mixed or light skinned black women. It is coming from a different place. So it is a different type of social hostility that you're dealing with. You know, it's just, it can't be compared. That's why I'm saying comparing the two is dangerous. Saying one is better than the other is dangerous. A black male can talk about you every day for sundown and kingdom come, and you not give a flying fuck. You know what I mean? If you can't make friends at school and you gotta fight every day because chicks are trying to jump you, I mean, you stuck at one school for whatever reason. You know, these situations are just very different. So you just can't compare the two. So yeah, I think that just that colorism conversation is just way more complex than people are willing to let on, and it's just like it's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on the whole people dragging Tashena Arnold about saying reverse colorism is a thing. What I do think that people are saying though to Tashena Arnold is that when it's kind of the same concept as when people say if people give you a compliment, then take it. You don't always have to like direct it onto somebody else to say, oh my gosh, like, oh, this shirt is old, or I don't even have on makeup, or whatever it is. Like when somebody gives you a compliment, take the compliment. You know what I mean? Like I definitely think that that's something black women could learn. And I'm saying that in the context of they're defending Pam because they don't like how Pam was treated by Martin, and we don't like the jokes that were made, and we're validating like, hey, you didn't deserve that treatment on the show, and Pam deserved better, and she deserved more of a character arc than being called a dog by Martin, who was what, a desk jockey on a radio show at best. Like, you know what I mean? So that's all we were saying. So I do feel like people wanted Tashena Arnold to understand, like, people just wanted you to say, nah, I see that Pam deserved better and Martin was corny for that. And, you know, like, I think that Tisha Campbell would have definitely agreed as well. I don't think that Tisha Campbell would have been like, oh my gosh, why didn't you bring up what I experienced on the show? Like, Tisha Campbell would never have done that. She probably agrees, and she used to come at Martin as well, and she even had her issues with Martin down the line, because at the end of the show, Tisha Campbell wasn't even there anymore because she was having issues with Martin. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't even get me started about they keep trying to weaponize black males' preference against and triangulate against black women, and when at the end of the day they treat each woman disrespectfully. So it's like everybody's having issues. Who's the common denominator here? So yeah, that's my only perspective with the whole like people getting mad about the whole so-called reverse colorism thing. I don't think it's an issue for Tashena Arnold to bring up what Tisha Campbell experienced, but I also do understand what people meant by telling Tashena Arnold, telling her like, yo, like, you know, that you don't have to, you know, like, we can have a conversation about why what Martin was saying was weird and problematic, basically. And you don't have to divert the attention. And it kind of gave me the vibe that she was trying to divert the conversation and she didn't really want to talk about it. And she probably felt a little bit uncomfortable about it. So she was trying to divert the attention away from Pam and her character and her experience and trying to kind of talk about the nuances of different color experiences that different women have in the entertainment industry. And I think that's a good conversation. But, you know, I would have also been interested to know how she genuinely felt as an actress, how she genuinely felt with that banter, especially considering that that's a very common thing in African American culture just in general. So I'm sure she's experienced that in her real life. I'm sure he was treating her like that on the set. I wouldn't be surprised, because Martin Lawrence seems like that whole show was just Martin being Martin. Like, I mean, obviously it was, but you get what I mean? Like, I don't feel like he did any acting. Like, really, I feel like he would just come to set and just be himself, like, literally, like, and so, like, kind of keep up with the storyline. But I feel like everyone else was acting and he was just being himself. Like, so I would have loved to know, like, how does she really feel about that? But I feel like she felt uncomfortable and didn't really want to talk about it. And I also think this goes back to the way that different generations handle the isms conversation. A lot of Gen Xers, they don't want to talk about that stuff. They'll give you very general explanations. They won't get deep, or they will get defensive, or they'll just completely play coy and act like they don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, you have not seen this family member's hair since the mid-90s. You know what I mean? Like, ma'am, you have not had a curl or kink in your hair since the Jerry curl era, man. But we supposed to believe there's no issues going on here. Like, we can't even have the conversation without you wanting to get defensive. Like, so yeah, different generations deal with that stuff differently. So I also think that that's an interesting conversation to have as well. And I feel like that's where that stemmed from. So millennials and Gen Z, we don't give a fuck. We'll air out the dirty laundry and share our grievances. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of us are still black men worshipers and stuff, but a lot of us are way more honest with our experience. As where Gen X, and the boomers, they still be trying to kind of keep face or seem unbothered and pretend like they don't care about black men's behavior. And it's like, no, admit that you know that they're disrespectful and treasonous. It's okay. That doesn't mean you hate yourself just because you admit it. But it'd be like pulling teeth to get Gen X and boomers to admit the truth about black males' behavior. So I'm not surprised Tashena Arnold reacted that way at all. But yeah, that was my take on the situation. Get in the comment section and let me know what you thought about Tashena Arnold's perspective and how you feel about the dynamics on Martin. If you ever noticed that as well, or you don't feel like it's a big deal, get in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts on the whole situation were. Thanks for all the support. Peace.